correspondent Ross Coulthart, who's also done extensive reporting on UFOs, much of which we've seen here on News Nation. So pick up, Ross, if you can, from where Brian left off and what you think about this specific report about the CIA office.
Okay, so the Office of, firstly, g'day, Connell. The Office of Global Access is the office, I'm told, where this is all happening. You've got to have an office to coordinate the retrieval of these craft, and I know a lot of people out there still think this is all science fiction, but since we did the Grush interview a few months ago, I've just got more solid with intelligence sources who are telling me that the entire operation is and has long been run out of the CIA, and the OGA, the Office of Global Access, is where it's happening. The only issue that I take issue with in the Daily Mail report is that it's not just 9 craft. I'm told that the United States is in possession of far more than 9 craft, not all of them intact. And whilst this might all sound incredible, what I can also reveal is that, yes, there are JSOC operators, Special Operations Command operators, mainly recruited from the US Air Force Special Forces, who are involved in these retrieval teams. And it's a very active and ongoing operation.
Let me ask you one specific question about the term non-human. So UFO would be unidentified flying object, right? So these are supposedly operated by quote-unquote non-humans. How do we know that?
Because we have recovered, and again, this is on the basis of what I'm being told by multiple sources in the intelligence community, very senior sources who know what they're talking about, we have recovered what David Grush euphemistically referred to as biologics, alien bodies, non-human bodies. And I think we're getting very close, Connell, to a point where the US government is going to have to start becoming more candid with the American people, because the issue behind this Daily Mail story, in my view, is the risk of catastrophic disclosure, the risk that if the government isn't more open with the people, if the Congress continues to allow this story to be suppressed by sections of the defence aerospace community that, frankly, I do think are quite legitimately protecting or trying to protect what might be their intellectual property, i.e. these recovered craft that the US government has entrusted them to try and reverse engineer. If that cover-up continues, there's going to be an increasing risk of these kind of catastrophic disclosures. And I think it's incumbent on the president and members of the executive to start thinking seriously, because I know that there are people in the intelligence community who are very frustrated that knowledge of technologies, of other life forms, intelligent life forms, are being improperly withheld from the knowledge of the Congress and the American people.
So you think they know this for a fact, that it's not, that, in other words, that they're actually hiding something explicitly, that they have the evidence. You're convinced of that from the work you've done?
It's not just convinced. I am absolutely certain. You can take it to the bank. Too many very senior intelligence and defence sources have said this to me now. The only issue it really is for people to start thinking rationally about the implications of why 4 senior Republican politicians are trying to oppose legislation which would force the disclosure of something that consistently the Pentagon is trying to give the American people the impression doesn't exist. Why is it, if there is nothing to hide, why is it, if there is no evidence, no credible evidence of a non-human intelligence, why are very senior Republican politicians now changing the tune from what was a bipartisan effort to try to amend sections of the so-called Schumer UAP Disclosure Act, which would allow revelations to be made to the American people about what the government really does know about UAPs.
Aren't you open to some other explanation, for example, that there could be a foreign military, for example, that's using classified, or that, our government has found out about the actions of a foreign military, but those actions are classified and there's some reason it can't be disclosed? And aren't there other explanations besides non-human life?
There are. No, there are, sir. And obviously the subject of the possibility that this is foreign adversary technology has been canvassed with senior people. And in fact, defence officials, this has largely escaped the scrutiny of legacy media, which is ignoring this story. As you quite rightly point out, News Nation has perhaps solely among networks run with this issue. The simple fact is that the government has made it very clear in statements to the Pentagon and in evidence that this is not known rival foreign adversary technology. It's not China, it's not Russia, it's something else. And this is the implication of what we're dealing with. And that's why there has been, until very recently, a bipartisan effort in the Congress, a laudable bipartisan effort, which is quite rare in the Congress these days,
right,
to see a move for UAP disclosure. And that was pushed by the Senate Majority Leader Chuck Schumer and supported by Republicans such as Senator Marco Rubio. And now for essentially, I suspect, reasons of expedience to do with heavy-duty funding from the defence aerospace lobby, key Republicans are now moving to try and block sections of the Schumer legislation, notably the eminent domain section that would allow confiscation of any NHI technology. And Connell, you have to ask yourself, if this is all nonsense, why would somebody of the incredible reputation and seniority of Chuck Schumer and Marco Rubio, why would they associate themselves with legislation that specifically talks over 20 times about NHI, non-human intelligence technology? Congress knows something from private hearings. It's aware of evidence, not just from David Grush, but from multiple witnesses, and it's determined to get to the truth, even if certain politicians try to frustrate efforts to give the public the information it deserves.
Well, our thanks to you, Ross. As always, Ross Coulthart has done a lot of work on this subject, and much of which has been seen here on News Nation. Thanks for joining us tonight.
In conversation with Tucker Carlson, Representative Tim Burchett said he will be speaking directly with the new Speaker of the House about the UAP Disclosure Act either today or tomorrow.
So where is this legislation going? I mean, will there be disclosure short term? Will these two committee chairmen, the Speaker of the House, Mitch McConnell, will they shut it down?
Well, the Senate passed it, the amendment to the National Defense Authorization Act, but it hasn't been signed into law yet. The House is in negotiations, from what I understand, over this amendment. I'll be talking to the Speaker today or tomorrow about this amendment and just telling him how important it is to this community and transparency. That's really all I want is transparency. Where we're spending all this money on something, and where's it going, and why do they not trust the American public? Those are the things that people need to ask. You can, as I said at the hearing, I said we're not going to bring in a UFO, we're not going to bring in little green men, but what we want is transparency. And unfortunately, we don't have much of that in the United States Congress because oh, look, there's another shiny object over here. They'll misdirect us over here. They'll misdirect us over there. But I believe this community is very, very in tune to what's going on and the cover-up that's been going on.
Yeah.
Florida Congresswoman Anna Paulina Luna wrote on X, "My office is now putting together a bipartisan press conference on the pushback we are getting regarding UAPs. We will announce dates. This will be open to the public. More to come." Journalist Ross Coulthart recently revealed that the United States has recovered extensive non-human craft while appearing on News Nation.
The Office of Global Access is the office, I'm told, where this is all happening. You've got to have an office to coordinate the retrieval of these craft. And I know a lot of people out there still think this is all science fiction. But since we did the Grush interview a few months ago, I've just got more solid with intelligence sources who are telling me that the entire operation is and has long been run out of the CIA, and the OGA, the Office of Global Access, is where it's happening. The only issue that I take issue with in the Daily Mail report is that it's not just 9 craft. I'm told that the United States is in possession of far more than 9 craft, not all of them intact. And whilst this might all sound incredible, what I can also reveal is that, yes, there are JSOC operators, Special Operations Command operators, mainly recruited from the U.S. Air Force Special Forces, who are involved in these retrieval teams. And it's a very active and ongoing operation.
If someone doesn't take a Polaroid camera into one of those rooms and get some photographic
I'm getting so sick of this. Just
Well, now to Capitol Hill in a bipartisan effort to shed light on unidentified objects in the sky. may be losing momentum. Senate Majority Leader Chuck Schumer is among those pushing to declassify and release government information on UFOs. They're more commonly referred to these days as unidentified anomalous phenomena, or UAPs. But it seems not everyone is backing the effort for greater transparency. Let's bring in correspondent Joe Khalil live on Capitol Hill. Joe, exactly what would this amendment to the annual defense bill actually accomplish?
Yeah, Nicole, it's important. I want to start there so our viewers sort of understand what this does. This measure put forward by Chuck Schumer and some Republicans in the Senate essentially would eventually make public all of the government records now classified relating to UFOs or UAPs and, in their words, non-human intelligence. That is what the actual text of that amendment says. And the amendment essentially goes further than any other we've ever seen before. It says here, quote, that all government records concerning UAPs carry a presumption of immediate disclosure, and all records should eventually be disclosed to enable the public to be fully informed. Now, we've also heard testimony from whistleblowers under oath here in Congress and on our network at News Nation. They have claimed that the government, some agencies, have possession of some crashed UFOs or UAPs, and that some of them are being housed in private contractors' possessions, places like Lockheed Martin. So if that allegation, it's a big one, is true, if it is true, this measure would also essentially make those aircraft property of the U.S. government and subject to Congress. And I'm going to quote again here. It says the government would have eminent domain over any and all recovered technologies of unknown origin and biological evidence of non-human intelligence that may be controlled by private persons or entities. So these measures go further than anything we've seen before in terms of disclosure. Now, today, there is a debate between Senate and House over what version of this bill ends up going forward. And there is, according to some sources we've talked to, an effort to weaken or water down that language. There have been accusations that some people, one of them being Congressman Mike Turner, chairman of the Intelligence Committee here in the House, has been trying to do that. Now, we just moments ago caught up with him. He says that's not the case. I'm going to let you hear in Turner's own words how he describes the situation.
I do think it's a poorly drafted piece of legislation. Also, what I really find interesting about what I call the pro-alien caucus over here in the House, unlike you, not one of them has ever spoken to me about any of these issues. I mean, you and I are speaking. You would think that if this is that important of an issue to them, at least one member of the House who's advancing this cause would actually come up and substantively talk to me about this issue. No one has even raised it. Okay. Perhaps you might want to ask them why they haven't.
So that was what he told us on camera. He ended up walking away after that. We sort of clarified with him. He says he is not the person who is blocking this amendment. He doesn't think it's going to pass. He thinks it's, as you heard him say, poorly written. But he tells me he is not the person who is blocking it. Did acknowledge that there is sort of a back and forth now. So what we end up with, is it going to be as strong of language as what I just read you all at the top of this hit? We're not sure. That is being worked out as we speak. We're continuing to follow it. But that is the first time that we've heard from Mike Turner after some other members of Congress and other sources we've talked to have sort of alleged that he is the person who is trying to weaken that amendment. Nicole.
Yeah, Joe Khalil asking those important questions there. Joe, thank you.
UFOs are not new. They're things in the sky that can't be identified. It doesn't mean that they're from outer space. It could mean that they're from a private source somewhere in this country. It could be another country. It could be, I don't know, okay? Back in June, UFO whistleblower David Grush, they tried to destroy his credibility. They could not. And he made headlines when he exclusively told News Nation the government secretly collects crashed spacecraft. Remember this interview?
By crash retrieval, what do you mean?
These are retrieving non-human origin technical vehicles, call it spacecraft if you will, non-human, exotic origin vehicles that have either landed or crashed.
We have spacecraft from another species.
We do.
Now look, I'm not saying that you have to believe him, but he sure as heck knows a lot more about it than you or I do, okay? This is what he works in. But more importantly, we shouldn't be asking the questions. There are people who know the answers. And that's all I've been pushing for here, is that they should be held to account to the people who put them in power. Today, a new report claims that indeed, as Brother Grush mentioned, CIA, secret program, collecting downed UFOs. Multiple sources say that that agency, maybe involving others, uses U.S. Special Forces, okay, our best operators. Last time I checked, we don't use them for BS situations, okay? Sends U.S. Special Forces to pick up UAPs and then hand them over to private military contractors to figure out whose they are, what they are, etc. The report claims they've collected at least 9 of these, 2 intact. So why don't we know this? What does this mean, and how do we get more answers? Joining tonight, the man on the front line in Congress pushing for full UFO disclosure, getting people chop-blocking him at every turn, including elected representatives from within his own party, GOP member of Congress Tim Burchett, and the independent journalist who broke the UFO cover-up story wide open when he interviewed whistleblower Dave Grush for News Nation, Ross Coulthart. It's good to have you both. Thank you very much. First of all, Ross, does this square with your reckoning at this time, these most recent reports, that yes, government agencies, at least including the CIA, have specific programs and manpower to deal with things that are in the air that they can't identify, want collected and studied?
Absolutely, Chris. Firstly, good evening, and g'day, Tim. What I can tell you is the Office of Global Access is the office in the CIA that has been coordinating this. They have been doing crash retrievals for many years. One of the things that I do take issue with in the Daily Mail story today is that they say there's just 9 craft that have been recovered. My understanding is that there are considerably more. And as the article accurately reports, this is done in collaboration with JSOC, the Joint Special Operations Command, notably with special forces drawn primarily from the US Air Force. So yes, the article is accurate, and I've got it also confirmed independently by multiple senior intelligence sources.
Congressman Burchett, what'd they do? They cut off the heat down there because you're pushing for too many answers?
You Yankees keep it cold up there in Washington, brother. And I just want to say for the record, both y'all speak with funny accents, but I've got a teleprompter underneath me that translates what y'all are saying. So we're good. But hey,
Ross's accent makes him sound more sophisticated. My voice sounds like I'm here to kill you. But listen, Congressman, let me ask you, what do you make first of the resistance to transparency within your own party, the other party? What do you make of it?
That's the uniparty, Chris. You know that. You close the door. Your dad and my dad were old school politicians, and at the end of the day, they'd go out and have dinner together and share, some common views. Today, it's you close the door. The only thing these people see is green, and that's what this is all about. It's about money. It's about power. It's about control, and the public's had enough of it. Thanks to good reporting by y'all, and I think we're going to get to the bottom of something here. This CIA issue is huge, and the fact that I too have had some conversations and verified some of this stuff is that it's true. So, of course, I haven't seen it. I don't have to see it, but I think the American public deserves to see what the hell's going on with this stuff, because until we get to the bottom of this, this thing is so big that it travels over into every agency that we have in Washington. Because you've noticed when you all started reporting this, and polling data was showing that 55% or more of the American public believe that there was something else out there. Now you're seeing departments like NASA. Everybody at the Pentagon is wanting to get on the gravy train. They're saying, hey, we need to study this. We need a robust budget to study this stuff. Hell, they don't need to study it. They've got it. They just need to turn it over to us, and that's the problem.